Welcome to Business Casual. I am Mihae Ahn, your host and author of The Stories We Tell and Perfectly Incomplete. Business Casual brings you unfiltered conversations with badass, inspiring, highly accomplished women. I am passionate about and believe in the power of sharing stories, our authentic, raw, incomplete stories, getting beyond the polished LinkedIn profiles to the real humans behind the titles. My guest today is Laura Vaughn. Laura is a coach and mentor to highly successful CEOs and executives. She works with them through her own practice and as a chair and Ontario Regional Director of MacKay CEO Forums. She's my coach and mentor. She truly leads with authenticity and a genuine heart. I think she has a heart so big that it can embrace everyone, anyone. Some key takeaways from our chat include: small changes can lead to significant improvements. Our life is fluid. Every season presents different requirements. Success is and should be highly subjective. Know your definition of success. I appreciate today's conversations so much for so many different reasons. One of them is how openly Laura shared her learnings from the highs and lows of life, especially the lows. I very much enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you enjoy it as well. Hi, Laura. How are you?
Hello. I'm great, Mihae. Really nice to see you as always.
Yes, thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure. I'm just honored to be here. It's a real privilege.
Yes, I really appreciate the time, and you know, we have a lot going on, everyone. We have lots of things on our plate, and
Mhm.
taking the time and creating the space to have this conversation, really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. I love the work you're doing, and if I can contribute to that in one small way, I'm happy to.
Thank you. We met when a few years ago at an event, and we started a group at MacKay CEO Forum.
Mhm.
When I first met you, Laura, I felt the connection. I know how cliche it sounds, but I did feel the connection with you, and I was hoping if I were to join MacKay and join a group, I hope she can be my chair. I did think about that, and
Mm.
then it turned out to be that just happened,
Yes.
and yeah, we
And
started
that
a
was
group.
3 years ago now, 2 years ago, 2.5 years, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Yeah, I had the same thought when I first met you. And yes, it does sound cliche, but there are just certain people in life who you know are going to stretch you and challenge you and inspire you. And so you're one of those people for me. And I know you are for a lot of other people too. So,
Thank you, thank you.
yeah.
And so far, the connection that you and I have created and nurtured,
Hmm.
truly cherish it.
Hmm.
So thank you very much.
Hmm.
Um,
Thank you.
so maybe with that, a little bit about yourself, the work that you do, please, so our audience can.
Yeah, sure. So I am a forum chair with MacKay CEO Forums, as you already said, Mihae, and also the regional director with MacKay CEO Forums, which means I am incredibly passionate about peer learning and the opportunity to grow and learn from our peers just by showing up generous and curious and invested in one another. I'm also a CPA by training, so I didn't get to this role in a traditional way. I did a number of corporate roles, including a CEO role in a manufacturing business, which then led to a couple of other senior executive roles. And then ultimately went out into my own entrepreneurial journey doing leadership training and development and some financial training and coaching as well before I kind of landed where I am today at MacKay.
Yes. What about coaching, mentoring, and peer learning? You are most passionate about and excited about?
Oh gosh. Every time I'm in the room with a group of CEOs or executives is our sweet spot, of course. Somebody has an aha moment. Somebody has an epiphany. Somebody has a breakthrough. And it's never, I think what I really like about it, and I don't say this to sound superficially humble or anything like that, it works for me because it's not about me. And I really just get to show up and create the space and set the guardrails for great conversations to happen, and then they do. And it's it's so inspiring. I think there are a lot of misconceptions in the world about CEOs and senior executives, what kind of people they are, and they're so human when they come into the room, and really everybody's just there trying to make the world a better place in their own way, and they're so invested in their work, in their people, in impacting their customers, and so yeah, I love it because I see these breakthroughs and epiphanies every time I'm in the room, and I see their hearts and their passion for what they're doing. And also they're really funny. They make me laugh as well, which is, life would be boring without that. So, yeah.
What I like about MacKay, the peer group that you and I have been in the journey with, is the commitment at the end. Because it can feel like, yeah, we are talking about a whole bunch of challenges and complaining and bitching about them. And if there's no right commitment at the end, it can feel like, okay, so now what?
So what?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
even the one-on-one conversation with you, sometimes given how close we are, I just let go and just talk to you, right? Just blah. And
We all need that sometimes.
but at the end, I know I have noticed every time that you somehow lead me to, okay, so now what are you gonna do
Right.
after this?
Yep.
What is your
Let's
commitment?
talk about the future. What does this mean for the future? And there's always something we can do. Right? There's always some small action we can take. And I think I'm a big believer in I really ascribe to this small incremental steps. If I can make one small change in my week or in my month, if I do that, even if I do once a month, I do that 12 times a year. I've made 12 improvements, and it's usually, I don't know, for me anyway, I would say it's the smallest changes I've made in my life that have often had the biggest impact, the little micro adjustments that have the biggest upside.
Yes. So the workout thing that you and I talked about before, that my commitment to myself is
Yeah,
5 minutes
that's
a
a
day,
great example.
right? And I started this,
Yeah, 5-minute journal, nice.
yes, gratitude journal. Even though gratitude journal, it's been so popular, how many years now? I didn't really get into it because where, how can I find time?
It's
Find
always the thing.
uh, yes, gratitude journal. It felt kind of forced and so on, but Asta actually, she gifted it to me
Awesome.
earlier this year. So I started, and even though I got it in January, I didn't start it until 6 days ago.
Well, you're on a 6-day streak. Every streak starts somewhere.
And I
That's
like
awesome.
how it is structured to make just 5 minutes a day. That, okay, I can do 5 minute workout, 5 minutes.
Yeah, who doesn't have 5 minutes, right? Yeah, there's an executive in one of my groups who does 3 good things at the end of every day. And it's not even 5 minutes to think about 3 good, like, honestly, how long does that take? 3 seconds if you're really tuned in. Although it usually takes me longer, surprisingly. But yeah, he just like that one small change at the end of every day. Sometimes he'll do it at the beginning of the day for the day before, but that's just a micro change that has, and he would say, totally changed my mindset about my work and my family, and just kind of centers me on what's most important. So, yeah.
Even when we do the work that we really love and passionate about, there are challenges. There are um, some downs that we experience. Yes, ups, definitely we experience, but some downs as well. Any example that you can share with us that you experienced and learnings from?
professionally speaking. Well, I guess, I have little downs, like everybody else, days where it just sort of like, I'm not feeling it today. But the bigger downs, so if I go back, this is 10 years back, I guess now. Before I went out on my own, I ran a business alongside my dad and my husband, which was quite the adventure, I'll say. This was a manufacturing business, and I was 8 years in that business. Joined the business in 2006. And in 2008, of course, the economic crisis hit. And we had literally signed contracts for a $30 million greenfield plant expansion about a week before Lehman Brothers made the announcement. And, that was kind of the beginning of a real economic collapse that lasted several years. So I was new to the business, although not new to business in general. I had a business degree and my CPA designation and all the things that should help me through that time. But that began a 6-year battle for us to try and save the business, which had been in the family since 1954. I think my grandfather was the first owner. And I'm third generation. We all know what they say about third generation. And so I, carried that stigma with me wherever I went. And so for 6 years, we had way too much debt on our balance sheet relative to the amount of sales that were coming in after the economy collapsed. And we had a plant that we were trying to get up and running, and huge personal, emotional investment in this business, because it had been, I grew up hearing all the stories at the family dinner table about how dad got going here and how he drove sales there. And I used to drive around and listen for the sound of like a digger, and then I'd go sell them a basement. And it was concrete blocks with the product. So it was a very, very emotional journey. And of course, on the personal side at the same time, I had two little kids. So one of my kids was born in 2009 and the other one was 2011. So, and my husband was in the business. So there was so much at stake, and in the end, we couldn't save it. I, fired lots of friends, fired a husband and wife at the same time, near the end, just to try and, keep us profitable and keep the cash flow where it needed to be. Anyway, it was incredibly heartbreaking because we were so invested, and Mark and I both lost our jobs. Like, we'd never thought about what else we would do in life. This was just going to be the thing that we did forever. And at the same time, like, trying to stay strong for our kids. And so we celebrated my son's 4th birthday on a Thursday night. About our family around, and big, the cake and the hats and all the silly construction theme things. And Friday morning, drove into work, and met the receivers there so they could change the locks on the doors. And so it was, anyway, incredibly difficult time in life. But like, as is the case, we don't just say it because it makes us feel better. We say it because it's true. The hardest things in life bring the biggest lessons. And so many lessons about, there are some pure business lessons around forecasting and planning and assumptions and things. We didn't do enough downside scenarios. We couldn't have predicted. Maybe some people predicted the 2008 economic crisis, but we didn't. But if I'd done more downside scenarios, what happens if our sales drop 30 to 50%? What does that look like? And what would the steps be if we landed in that scenario? What would our debt look like in that scenario? I think that just would have been a game changer all by itself. But there was also lots of lack of clarity around who was responsible for what between my dad and Mark, my husband, and I. And afterward, I felt this sense of I feel like, dad was probably flying the plane, but Mark and I were sitting in the back seat, and there were all these warning lights going off, and we didn't have the assertiveness to say anything. Like, what's that light flashing for? Like, are we crashing? That should have been the question we were asking on a more regular basis. And we just kind of trusted he's got this. And he had years and years of business success behind him that we counted on. But definitely we should have put our hands up more often. And I think the biggest lesson after the fact was learning how to take the right amount of responsibility for what had happened. It was easy to take full responsibility, like take responsibility for all of it and really kind of dump on myself and carry all this shame. And, I'm a CPA. This we're not supposed to do this. And while I generally, agree that we should take 100% responsibility for our lives, is kind of a tenet of MacKay, there is something to be said for taking appropriate responsibility. And so learning, if the pie of responsibility is this big, what's my slice, and taking 100% responsibility for that. But I can't own all the other stuff. I can't own the economic crisis, and dump on myself for not seeing it coming. I can't own some of the choices and decisions that Dad made, and the relationships, the way he'd structured the business, and the lack of clarity around some of the positions. I was 2 years in when we made all these decisions. So learning really to pull apart what is my part, and how do I learn from that and accept responsibility for that without pulling all the shame and stuff in with it. And then what truly isn't my part, and being okay with other people made mistakes too, and that's okay. And I can still learn from their mistakes. But I can't, I don't have to take responsibility for not correcting their mistakes along the way. Anyway, so I think that's probably the biggest lesson I had to work through after.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Laura. Even though I knew the story, hearing it from you again in this fashion, I think there are a lot of learnings there. Even last 3 minutes, I thought about multiple different things. One thing that definitely resonated with me is the warning lights that you didn't say enough, you believe. I think many of us go through that, I believe. Because one reason, at least for me, is, well, that person has more knowledge, more experience, more context, more. So pretty sure I'm wrong. Is that light? I'm sure they are right.
Yeah.
So I better not say anything. And another thing is, along with that, if I say this, probably I will sound stupid, because I'm sure they are right. I'm wrong. And also another thing is hurting somebody's feeling by saying something, creating unnecessary alert or alarm when
Fear.
it's not
Yeah.
needed. Already stressful situations. Why would I want to add another?
Right.
So there are gazillion reasons why many of us just have our mouth shut, but
Yeah, and I think it gets to the heart of, the stories we tell ourselves, right? And like, what's the story I was telling myself as the warning lights were going off? Well, this story was, well, Dad knows. He's been doing this for years. He knows. What do I know? And I don't want to. And in terms of there was a lot of relational capital at stake too, right? Like, I don't want to be fighting about this at my son's birthday party in 2 weeks' time. So it's just easier to say nothing. And then, all the insecurities and the imposter syndrome, like, what do I know? I've been in this business 2 years. He's been here for 30. Who am I to question and challenge? So yeah, I think that all that narrative, sometimes we hold back.
totally. Speaking of stories we tell, the internal narratives, are there any stories recently that you rewrote to empower yourself more or inspire yourself more?
Yeah, so I think there's been one big story I've been rewriting for a number of years. When I left Atlas, I did a couple of other corporate things for a while, but I really struggled with this. My self-worth took such a big hit, and so everything I did after I left the business kind of felt like a consolation prize. Like, it was inferior, somehow less important than what I was doing before. My CEO role and my business ownership role was like the pinnacle, and everything else was just second or third or fifth place. So I think, I jumped right back into something CEO like a CEO succession role right away. And that felt really good for my ego. It kind of soothed me, but I was really unhappy. And so I had to really rethink, like there was this huge tension for me because I was doing the thing that I thought I most wanted to do, but I was unhappy and it was like entirely confusing. So that made me look at my own definition of success a lot more closely and compare that to, well, how much of what I'm doing is the world's definition of success and my dad's definition of success, right? And so I really had to figure out what brings me joy, but the story I was telling myself. So then I kind of left corporate and I went out back onto an entrepreneurial journey, but still really struggled because there was this story I was telling myself that this isn't a real business. This isn't a real job. This doesn't really matter. Like I'm not having any impact. I'm not capable. What do I have to offer on this subject? And so I would say I've probably been on it's probably been a 5-year journey of rewriting that story and ditching the language of this isn't a real business. Like what is that anyway? Real according to who? Like whose bar am I trying to live up to or measuring myself against? It's not mine. It's not one that I created. And so really rewriting that to tell the story of like, now I talk about how I'm doing the work I never want to retire from. And that it might not be a real business by some people's standards, but who cares about that? I'm doing work I never want to retire from. And I actually, I get a funny response when I say that to people because it's like an unusual, I think that's such a privilege. And so, yeah, but I think rewriting stories is hard because we often, I wasn't aware of that narrative for probably 3 or 4 years. This isn't a real business. This is inferior. This is less than, this is pointless. I didn't hear that the story I was telling myself until I did, and then I could do something about it. But I lived in a unhelpful narrative for a long time simply because I wasn't tuning into it.
The awareness is first step,
Mm.
and having that awareness is not easy, especially how noisy our world is.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Have been wanting to do therapy. I have been wanting to do it, but few like intro calls or however they call it, and didn't really feel the connection with the individuals that I met with. So I thought, is it not for me? That's why I'm just not. Am I not ready yet, or what is it? So didn't really get into it for a long time, even though I wanted to. Recently, back to Artha, we talk about her. I'm gonna
Yeah.
having dinner next week.
She's such a game changer. She's
She definitely
an
is.
amazing human.
She introduced me to someone and met with her twice so far. I'm really liking it.
Ah.
I want to have better awareness, deeper awareness of who I am and what other beliefs that I am stuck in, even after all this work that I've been doing, looking inward and so on. So,
Well, good for you for having the courage to not accept that story, right? Because that is the story that you could have just said, that's the end of that is the end of the story, that I'm not ready or this isn't for me or whatever else. So you just decided, I think the story's not quite done yet.
not yet. We'll see. So you talked about being mom, 2 kids. I know you have son and daughter. How was that journey like, balancing harmony, however people call it? We have many different hats that we wear. Sometimes those hats clash with each other.
That is for sure. Yeah, there's this, again, a tension that exists. I remember when my kids were little, feeling like I'm never happy anywhere. When I'm at work, I'm feeling guilty because I'm not with my kids. And when I'm with my kids, I'm feeling guilty because I'm not working on my business, which really and sincerely needed a lot of attention during that time. So I remember, a dear friend of mine before I had my first child gave me, passed along something she had heard that I kind of have used throughout my career. And she said, there's no answer to the question, what's right? But there is an answer to the question, what's right for now? What's right for this season of life? And that has been so helpful to me all the way along. Even when things were at their worst at Atlas, I remember pushing my 1-year-old in a stroller, and I'm on the phone with the bank trying to negotiate more time. And it's just like high stakes here, and this little human being here that I am ultimately responsible for shaping her life. And but what's right for right now has been really helpful, that nothing is permanent. And our kids are going to go through different seasons of life, as are we. And that as long as we're open to recognizing we're in a different season and adjusting. So right now I'm in a season of life, my kids are 15 and 13 now. And my work schedule looks different than it did. They're very, very busy. I'm very sensitive to the fact that I have about 5 years before they launch. And so for me right now, I just sort of keep I'm very intentional about how much time I devote to my work and to my business, because I don't want to miss. I don't want to look back and regret that and I wasn't as connected with them as I could have been. And so we got a lot of windshield time and do a lot of driving, and I just feel like I know my kids really well, and they know me really well because of that choice. And even when I was doing the CEO thing at Atlas, I brought my kids into the office. There were times when I had to be there. My baby's coming with me, and I'm running a management team meeting, and she's nursing, and it's all men. There's construction industry, it's all men. And I remember thinking, this is going to make them really uncomfortable, and then just deciding that's going to have to be their issue, because I got 2 jobs to do here right now, and they are in conflict with one another, but maybe they don't have to be. If I can figure out a way to bring them together, then so be it. So I don't know. It's a journey. I just think it's never static, and I just need to always be rethinking, is this the design I want for my life in this season? And then daydream about other seasons. That's okay. They're for later.
Then nothing is permanent. That was definitely helpful for me as well, going through each phase last 7 years, last 6 years, well, including pregnancy, right? As your body is changing and so on. Because at the moment, it feels like it's gonna be forever.
It does feel that way. It's true.
But it is not. Both good and bad.
Yes, absolutely.
I love what you said there. If they are not comfortable with it, it's their problem. I'm doing my best here in my circumstance, in my shoes. I'm doing best as I can, and the rest,
gotta let it go. Yeah. That's their narrative.
yes.
Yeah.
So far, given the work that you do, you have a lot of different conversations with a lot of different people who are highly successful and driven. What types of questions that you hope that people ask more to you, looking at you as mentor and coach, and also to themselves?
So what questions do I wish people might ask me? Is that kind of
Ask you and also ask themselves. 'Cause sometimes we are so stuck in our own box or our own world, and not really able to see broader picture or different perspectives.
So I think I'm struggling to come up with one answer for both of those. What people don't often ask me versus what I think people should ask themselves. more often. I think that one thing I see a lot of successful people, I wonder how often they ask themselves this question, because it doesn't come up in conversation very often, is what they want to leave behind. What do they want to be known for? What's the legacy when they look back on life? What's the story that they want to have written, that they want their loved ones to be telling? And I think we all forget to ask that question on a regular basis. And I think in some ways, the more quote unquote successful we are, maybe by the world's definition, the less often we ask it, because we just get busy being successful and doing the next thing and doing the next thing. And it just becomes maybe a little bit of habit. And we just, not that we go through the motions, but we go and do the thing that we're really good at, and there's nothing that kind of forces us. Sometimes we need something to interrupt our direction, right? To force us to take a step back and ask that question. And so I think if some of the leaders I worked with asked themselves that question more proactively, without needing the catalyst, then maybe those catalysts wouldn't happen, right? It's like when we don't take the time to rethink proactively, life kind of forces it on us. And all of a sudden we find ourselves in a situation where we're like, hang on a second, how did I end up here? So I think
one there, right, Laura? Health, our physical, mental health, and also relationship.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Those we tend to take for granted.
We do. They're so, just so everyday present, and it's like, it's all the little things. So I could do that tomorrow, and tomorrow I'll say I love you, or tomorrow I'll make his coffee, right? And it's just so easy to put those things off, because it feels like we have an endless number of opportunities to get better at them. Questions, when I think about questions people don't ask me very often, and I think that one thing that people probably don't know about me is the impact that my faith has on my life journey and my choices and the way I've navigated, especially the being knocked off my feet situations. And it's just such a huge part of finding my feet again and keeping my focus on the long term, just prayer and looking up instead of looking at my circumstances and trying to put them in the context of a life well lived, has been it's been a true north for me. And that's not a conversation we have in a lot of business circles, and certainly not in our forum groups, because we respect where everybody's at on their faith journey. But that's it's been a very central part to my journey, not just business, but personally too.
What is next for you, Laura?
Well, I'm already doing the work I'm never going to retire from. So I'm going to keep doing the work I do in peer learning, bringing people together so they can inspire each other and encourage each other and help each other grow. Populating the world with inspiring leaders, as we say at MacKay. I think in another, as life, new seasons are coming for me, there's a few things I look to layer on to that. I'm writing a book. And so that's really fun. Yeah, it's very exciting. It's funny because people I don't know if this happened to you when you wrote your books, but it's like people kind of catch word, not close friends, but like LinkedIn, and they keep coming to me and saying, I can help you write your book in 90 days. And like, let's get it published. And I keep responding back, I'm not trying to go fast. Like, I'm writing for the love of writing. And so it's a really, yeah. So that's it almost feels like a very selfish project right now. But I really do love to write. So that's one thing. I'm layering in a little bit more one-on-one coaching to go with my forum work. I really, again, that's just like when I see personal breakthroughs happen, that's really a source of joy and inspiration for me. So I want anywhere I can put more of those moments into my life is a good thing from a professional perspective. And then personally, I I got about another 5 years before my kids kind of launch into the next chapter of their life. And so really focused on helping them, thrive through their high school years and then launch as responsible and honest, humble, and faithful human beings that can be amazing contributors wherever they go.
I believe I already know answer to this, but I will still ask so you can say it in your words.
Yeah.
The legacy that you want to leave behind.
I hope that when I get to the end of my life, I can look back and see, I want to see a lineup. I want to see a big, long line of people who had those breakthroughs for themselves, maybe did things they didn't even know they could do, in part because I showed up. And I hope that, I'm getting emotional, I hope that my kids are the first two people in line, that they just found better versions of themselves because I was there.
No doubt about that. No doubt. So I really appreciate you, you being there for many people, and you being in my inner circle. Because the impact you have, I'm gonna cry. The impact that you have in my life, it is just, there's no word that can describe. So really appreciate you, and
Thank you, Mihae.
yeah, cannot wait to look back in however many years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, because we're gonna be in each other's life forever.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, I agree. There's so many adventures yet to come for us.
Like looking back and re-listening to this episode, however many decades, what we're gonna be talking about.
It's
I'm
true.
looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what stories we're telling ourselves
Yes.
compared to this one, 5 years down the road. And so, right back at you. You're a total inspiration to me. Just love your passion, your joie de vivre. You just have such incredible passion from squeezing the juice out of every moment in life. And I thank you. You inspire me.
Thank you. Time's up for today, for now.
Yeah. Till next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Talk to you later. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please remember, you have more agency than you often realize. Choose your stories. I'll see you next time.